guys, welcome back to another episode of Making Monsters. I'm Taylor Doll, and we're coming off a bad loss. I'm not even going to pick a Monster of the Week because I felt like that was embarrassing. I don't feel like anything went right. The defense got embarrassed in a lot of aspects. I know pieces of the secondary are still missing, and I know that Billings ended up going out, which absolutely breaks my heart. He got put on IR. That is a huge hit on the defensive line, obviously, and we'll see Zach Pickens. He's going to have to step up into a really big role. So we will see how that goes this weekend. But also Jalen Jones, he is also put on IR. Also breaks my heart. He's played really well when he's had to come in too. So those are unfortunate circumstances. The offensive line is all sorts of banged up right now. They already weren't playing pretty good, and then you throw just salt on the fire, I think is the phrase, and it looks atrocious. A team in Arizona that before the Bears had a 26% pass rush, like the percent chance of getting to the quarterback, and they got to Caleb Williams 46% of the time. That's embarrassing. And I don't know how you fix that right now because there's just not really an immediate solution, especially when injuries keep piling up, especially when injuries weren't there. It still wasn't awesome. Caleb's making some bad decisions. We've seen some overthrows. We've seen some super inaccurate throws when it's deep. We've seen this last week him kind of just not really making the best decisions. There's one video going around where the one with Keenan that Keenan didn't catch in the end zone. The DJ's wide open on like the 5-yard line. Probably could have just got it, ran it in, touchdown. But I kind of joked on Twitter that it was one of the situations where it started hailing on our offense in Arizona. That probably should have been the sign for us that this day wasn't going to go very well. Yeah, but I'm not going to pick a Monster of the Week. I don't think anybody on this team really deserved that. It felt like we're seeing videos of DJ Moore walking off the field in the middle of the play. I know Steph has come out that he rolled his ankle, so he was already out of bounds, so he just went and sat down. Then people are like, okay, well, on the next play he was out there running a route, and so I don't know. But we're going to need a big attitude change from a lot of these guys because 2 weeks ago we're seeing Tyreek Stevenson and the game that ending the way that it did. And then now we're seeing multiple players where it just feels like not have this energy, not have this burst that they had in the 3-4 game stretch earlier, only just 3 weeks ago before obviously the Hail Mary. I really hope the Hail Mary didn't just take them out and completely deflate them. That's a personally, in my opinion, a really weak team if one Hail Mary that went that way derails your entire team and the entire motivation of why you're here. So I really hope this isn't the type of team. I know there's a lot of coaching stuff going on right now. People, players kind of calling out coaches. DJ Moore's comment about Eberflus, if the team's, if he's lost the locker room, wasn't the most convincing thing that we've ever heard from a player talking about their coach. But I mean, coaches coach, but players got to play too at the end of the day, and they aren't making those plays. We saw Keenan drop a ball. We saw, I want to say Rome dropped a ball too. There were mistakes all over the field, and those type of things you just can't have. And especially at this level, especially now we're in week 10 of the NFL, and I'm not expecting Caleb to be perfect. I know there's still going to be mistakes. We've talked about that. There's going to be ups and downs, but I would like to start seeing a little more fast starting offense, not taking 3 quarters to finally score or only getting field goals and then finally scoring a touchdown in the third or never scoring a touchdown at this point. It looks like the last 2 games. But anyways, it's time to move on. I mean, I got to the point where I was just like, I'm done talking about the Arizona game. I'm done talking about the Hail Mary. You've got to move on. You've got to do what you can with what you have. The 49ers have lost half their team during the season, including some of their biggest guys and a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who now they're getting back, but you don't see them looking like they're giving up. And I do direct that to coaching. I think coaching is a big part in players' effort. So I truly hope that these guys can rally around that this weekend as they face the Patriots. Patriots are 2-7. It looked in the beginning of the season that they may surprise some people. That's kind of fallen off a little bit. They've allowed a ton of points recently to the Jags, to the Texans. So you're kind of hoping that you can take advantage of that because clearly, I mean, being 5-4 looks a lot better than being 4-6. Is that what it is? Hold on. What are we? We're 4-4. So being 5-4 is better than being 4-5. And especially going into the the end of the schedule that we have. It's difficult. Um, I just mentioned CMC being back. So now you have all of the division opponents twice. You have the Niners with Christian McCaffrey back, and then you also have the Seahawks who aren't, it's not something you can just shrug off whatsoever. Um, yeah, so I mean, the defense who has been kind of carrying things, I'm not mad at them because I think that, like I said, with Billings going down and with Gordon not out there and with Brisker not out there, and then Jalen Jones went down, Terrell Smith got hurt, so Tyreek had to come back out. It was messy, it was ugly, but it's the first time that they've allowed over 21 points in a really long time, so I'm not angry at them because when your defense is on the field for the majority of games, it's going to catch up at some point. The offense has to come out and score early, and that's my secret to this weekend. If we can see the Bears come out and score quick and fast right away, then maybe we'll start having some confidence on that side of the ball, and I think that's what it's going to take for Caleb. Caleb's one of those guys, he's very competitive, he's really confident, but I also, what we've noticed so far is maybe it gets a little shaky sometimes if they're not coming out. He gets frustrated. And I get it because when you're that competitive, when things aren't going right, when players are dropping passes or when the line's not protecting and you're getting hit really quickly, those things start to pile up. So I just hope that we can give him a little bit of help out there, score quick, give him some confidence because once he starts cooking, he'll start cooking. We saw that in that 3-game stretch. So anyways, we're going today. I actually am going to be previewing, obviously, the Bears Patriots game. As I said, we're talking about a 2-7 team. So we will see how this looks. They're in very similar situations in the fact of they both drafted quarterbacks when Justin Fields and Mac Jones, and then now they both drafted quarterbacks in Caleb Williams and Drake May. So they're starting over again after a few years. But I'm going to be talking to Christian Arcand. He works for WEEI, covering Boston and New England sports. So we'll be able to get into it a little bit with him, where the Patriots are, where Drake May is, where this defense is, who looked really good early, maybe has been exposed a little bit in certain areas recently. Like I said, some of those points allowed in the last few games, but you got to keep going. There's a lot of football still left. We're about halfway through the season. The Bears obviously had their bye. So 4-4 at 500. Your season's not dead. The Packers lost last week too. Lions just keep winning. They look really, really good. So I'm not out here saying we're about to go to the Super Bowl or anything, but I do think to instill some confidence in some of these young guys, including Caleb Williams, I think is important. I think it's important to get Rome cooking. Rome had over 100 yards again last week. Give Rome the ball. I don't really know what's going on with DJ. I don't know if there's a disconnect there. I don't know if we're reading too much into things. What I do know is that they're using Keenan wrong. I saw something the other day. He's one of the best players when it comes to um, I'm trying to think, there's a certain route. I'll have to go back and look, but there's like one route that he's just like his whole entire life, because the stat started with how his average depth of target is like 11.9 or something, and it's the highest it has been in his entire career. And I was just like, I don't really understand why you are having somebody change. Like, the guy's in his 12th season, he's a 6-time Pro Bowler. Why all of a sudden are you switching everything that he's been really, really good at and what he's been a reliable at? And I'm not saying that all of a sudden is leading to him his drops, but I do think that it is leading to maybe some confusion and maybe think like the timing being off between him and Caleb and all of those things, because you can tell that the timing is just not quite there, and it's just something you're not used to seeing Keenan Allen drop balls. Like, that's been one of the most steady things that you've been able to count on with him, the route running and the actually catching the ball, physically catching. So we will see. Anyways, I'll get back to the route thing because it was an interesting stat. And I think that when we're talking about this, you want to look into those things. And that's why people are starting to get frustrating with the coaching. Why does Cole Kmet have 1 target in 2 games? They said today that it's not because they're not in the playbook. It's because when you're reading through progressions, whatever, just hasn't got there to Cole Kmet. I don't want to hear that. Like, you get the ball, find a way to get the ball to Cole Kmet. You don't hear Patrick Mahomes saying like, oh, I just didn't really get the chance to get it to Travis Kelce. Like, it's just insane. So we will see. Anyways, like I said, we are going to be chatting some Patriots Bears preview. And I also have a podcast coming out too. We're going to be talking DVOA. I know it's a stat that is getting more and more popular, and it really specifies in depth player production, but in like a whole other level because it groups so many different factors. And so I'm going to talk to the creator of that and kind of where that number comes from, what all it entails. Jalen Johnson is, I think, the highest DVOA player in coverage this season. And last year he was a top 3. So that's kind of what sprung this conversation. And so we're going to talk about Jalen Johnson. We're going to talk the secondary. We're going to talk that DVOA number. That'll be coming up probably early next week. But let's get to a quick, give some love to Underdog Fantasy, and then we will go ahead and talk about some Bears Patriots. All right, so Underdog is the place to play if you are a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances, compete against others, but just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more players' stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones are ice cold? I feel like we can name some of those on the Bears. Make your entries in just a few taps and turn your sports opinions into real money. One of the cool things I like about Underdog, it puts the power to cash out in your hands. Now you can either keep riding with your entry or tap the win now button to cash out whenever you want. So I think that's nice. You can get the money right away. Underdog Fantasy is the place to play champions. So sign up and deposit now using promo code CITY, that's CITY, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's CITY, CITY. I also always like to share some of my experiences. I'm very basic with this, so I usually go the easy route and do the higher or lower. So I'll give you some of those for this weekend when it comes to the Bears Patriots game. We can go quarterbacks. That's going to be a talking point. Caleb Williams, 207.5 passing yards, higher or lower for that. Drake Mays, 190. And 190.5, 190 and a half, higher or lower on that. Caleb Williams, 1.5 passing touchdowns, higher or lower. For Drake May, it's a half passing touchdown is the higher or lower for that one. Some of the other numbers you can go to: Ramondre Stevenson, the running back in New England, 52.5 rushing yards, higher or lower. That's his number. The Bears run game got absolutely gutted by James Conner last week. So maybe you can win some money with that one. Especially with Andrew Billings being gone. But DJ Moore, his number is 4.5 receptions, higher or lower. And we'll see about that one. Rome Odunze, like I just said, I need more Rome. 40.5 receiving yards, higher or lower. I want to go higher on this. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more higher from Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams. I feel like we're really starting to see that connection cook. So I am very, very excited about that one because if you know me, if you've been listening to my podcast all off season, I've been one of the biggest supporters and wanters of Rome Odunze before he was even a Bear. And so now it's cool to watch him, but I want to see him more. Download the app today and use code CITY, CITY, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's CITY, CITY. 19 and up in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 up in Colorado for some games, 21 up in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. If you're in Arizona, it's 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783. All right, now we are continuing on. I'm talking to Christian Arcand of WEEI, obviously covering Boston, New England sports. Christian, thanks so much for hopping on with me.
Thank you, Taylor, for having me. It's great to be here. This is an interesting matchup. We interviewed Drake May on my show, and he said that he was really looking forward to this game going up against Caleb, who he's been competing with since high school. So there's a lot of nice subplots here for this one, I'd say.
Yeah, there is. And that's, I guess, where I kind of want to start with it, because I think that the Bears and Patriots both went through, they drafted Mac Jones, Justin Fields in the same year.
Yep.
Both parted ways with those guys. Then now are starting kind of over with Drake May and Caleb Williams from this draft. But so let's start with that. The path so far of Drake May, because that's been one of the complaints in the Bears world, is that we always we keep the coach and then you get a new quarterback and then the quarterback gets thrown in right away and there's no time to learn anything and they're just kind of thrown out into the NFL world really quickly. Drake May obviously not starting right away, but got pushed in pretty quick. So kind of the path of that, how do New England fans feel they've handled that so far?
Well, I think most fans wanted to see May play right away. And I know that out of the three main guys, out of him, Daniels, and Williams, he was considered the rawest. He played the least amount of games. He's 22. Like the other guys, Bo Nix is like 25. Some of these other guys have been around a while and they had a lot more experience. So I think that when May got drafted, it was also our offensive coordinators, Alex Van Pelt, and the GM is Elliott Wolf, who worked in Green Bay, and Green Bay had Rodgers sitting behind Favre all those years, and then Love sitting behind Rodgers, and really sort of believed in that whole idea of you can redshirt your quarterback for a year, 2 years, however many years you need to, and it's not that big of a deal. I sort of always felt, and I think a lot of Patriots fans felt, it's the third overall pick. Here in New England, we've had a pretty good at quarterback for a long time, obviously, notwithstanding the last 5 years or so. But Mac Jones was the 15th overall pick. It seemed like this was different. This was like Bledsoe, back in the 90s, picking first overall. And so I think people wanted to see him right away. People wanted to see how long this rebuild was going to be because, there was already a rebuild with Belichick, and now this is the latest one. So I'd say that it was like 80-20 from the fans wanting him to start right away. The other quarterbacks were all starting right away. The Commanders announced that Daniels was going to be the starter right away. Williams, it was just, you didn't even have to say it. Everybody knew it. Yeah. And everyone was starting except for Penix. So I think that sort of frustrated people, especially when you saw the offense that Brissett was running. It was really hard to watch. Like it was a dentist appointment getting through some of these games. And eventually they said, we can't do this anymore. They were on the verge of, I think, losing the locker room because these guys in the locker room, they maybe didn't know what May could do yet, but they knew that Brissett wasn't going to win them a lot of games. And I don't think winning games is really the point of this year for this Patriots team. And that's sort of unfortunate. I think that's why people wanted to see him start earlier. He's making mistakes. He had a bunch of, picks and the strip sack last week. But I think that, those are rookie mistakes, and we all decided as a fan base, we'll be able to live with these rookie mistakes. It just would have been nice for him to get them out of the way in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, before we get to this point and the season's over. But unfortunately, that's where we are.
Yeah, we know about rebuilds. That's one thing we do know about in Chicago. And that's what I guess the biggest difference is that when we talk about the Justin Fields and Mac Jones and then now this, we didn't have the multiple Super Bowl Hall of Fame quarterback before that. We've been on this figuring out the quarterback for a long time. Right. So in that realm, what would be your message to Bears fans in this 8 games if they are frustrated with Caleb? Or is it like, be patient, let this guy get the NFL, like get used to the NFL? Or do you think Caleb should be beyond where he is so far?
I think he's in a good, I don't know. I mean, like the last 2 games haven't been great for him, but the stretch, that winning streak you guys went on, I thought he had some good games and productive games. It was against bad teams, like Tennessee, the Rams. I remember you guys beat, like the Panthers, teams like that, which is fine. I mean, they're NFL teams and they all have wins. There's no teams with 0 wins out there. So, it was something to go out and play against those defenses and make plays against them. And I think Williams is a playmaker, but I was one of the rare people that didn't really love this draft for quarterbacks. I was fighting an uphill battle with this, but I felt like Williams fell off a little bit this last year. May, I thought, wasn't as good as he was his sophomore year. And, even guys like Nix, I thought were a little overrated. Penix isn't starting. I like Daniels, and I'm not just saying that because he's good, but like I did like him because he won the Heisman. And I thought, okay, well, at least someone's accomplished something. We're not talking about like national championship winners here or anything. May was a good quarterback in the ACC. Williams was good in the Pac-12 last year. And I think that, those are it's not like they were bad quarterbacks. I just sort of thought they were getting overhyped. Like it was the Elway draft, with Marino and all those guys. And I thought it was maybe going to be a little bit more like that draft you just mentioned with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and those guys. So far, it looks like I'm wrong. Certainly about Daniels. But I thought Williams, I don't know, that last year in college, he was, crying with his mother and stuff. And I feel like that just got people thinking about him in a different way. He's been better than I expected him to be. So I might be the wrong person to ask. I didn't expect much, and he's exceeded that. All of them have, really. I think they've all been better than I thought they would be. I didn't have high hopes for this class, which tells you what I know. But I think so far they all look pretty good. And I think Williams is working through some things. It seems like they're tuning out their coach over there. Like, I don't know if that's a great situation for a rookie quarterback to be in, you know?
Yeah, and that's what kind of is the crappy part. And that's what when I went back to another year of keeping a coach and drafting a quarterback, and it's the same repetitive system that they've had now for 3 times in a row. They kept John Fox, drafted Mitchell Trubisky, that turned to crap. They kept Matt Nagy, drafted Justin Fields, that turned to crap. And then now you keep Matt Eberflus, draft Caleb Williams, rather than a lot of people are like, just clean house, like get everything, like to start all over. And they've never done that full start over with the quarterback. It's always been like, here we're going to start over and rebuild something for you, but with a coach that we're not sure about. And that's what's been kind of frustrating, I think, for Bears fans. But I honestly, I'll say I was very hesitant this offseason early on when we were talking about the quarterback before we traded Justin. I was very much pro keep Justin, try to build around him. I felt like you could get a haul out of it. I understood the Bears were in a very rare position when it came to you were given the first overall pick by the Panthers. Right. And that's really, you don't see that. And so I understood. I just really was a little hesitant on certain things with Caleb. I have been impressed in some moments. I think there's obviously still things that needs to be worked on majorly, but to your point, I think I have been okay. There's things there that my biggest concerns haven't really shown yet. But let's talk more Patriots. The run game. Bears defense until last week hadn't allowed over 21 points in a really long time. Obviously, Kyler Murray and Arizona Cardinals were able to end that streak for them, after, I think, at like 13 or 14 games. But one of the biggest weaknesses has been the run defense, and now they just lost Andrew Billings and put him on IR, which was probably one of the biggest assets when it came to the little bit of run defense that we did have. What are your thoughts on how the Patriots are when it comes to that area of their game with Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson?
Well, you're in luck because the Patriots can't run at all. They have the very bad run blocking up front. Stevenson hasn't really made much of an impact. He had a couple touchdowns in that last game, but was averaging like 1.6 yards per carry. It was brutal. It's brutal watching this team try and run the ball. In fact, Drake May is their only running attack. I mean, he's really all they have. He's run since he started. I read this today. Since he got his first start in that span of games, I think it's been like 4 games with 3 starts by him, and then he got the concussion, so Brissett started one of the games. But in those 3 games, in that time, I guess it's 4 weeks technically, but only 3 games, he's rushed for more yards than any other quarterback, more than Jackson, more than Daniels, more than, all of them. It's just what I was surprised to see. And he's doing it because he has to. I mean, that's it. It's the only thing that works. The pocket breaks down. He's got pretty good instincts for it, which I was worried about. Like Jacoby Brissett, you saw it with him the first couple of weeks. The pocket would break down, and here's a guy who's been sacked like 800 million times in the NFL. So he knows when the pressure's coming. He knows what NFL pressure feels like. Yeah. Drake May doesn't. So I was worried he was going to go out there and get smoked. But he's fast. He's sneaky fast for like a tall kid like him. He runs upright, but he gets around the corner, and he can really break him out there for first downs. He's averaging a first down per rush, like 10 yards a rush, which is impressive. But I also think, like, if you're the Bears, you just have someone spy on the quarterback, you hold the edge, and you don't let him do that. And if you don't let him do that, then the offense doesn't really have much else to offer. The run defense for the Patriots hasn't been great lately either, but they've gone up against teams like Tennessee and Jacksonville and, so Miami with Snoop Huntley, and not good teams. Yeah. And it just seems like their identity coming into the season, and Gerard Mayo said this a lot. He said, our identity in this season is going to be a defensive first team that runs the ball. And that was not necessarily like we want Drake May to hand it off all the time, but they weren't sure when he was going to start, if he was even going to start this year, if it was going to be like a redshirt year. So they came out of the gate with that being their identity. And it, for the first couple of weeks, was kind of working, but they can't run block anymore, and these running backs can't make it through the holes in time. So like that's unfortunate. I think that if you're a Bears team, you worry less about their actual run game. I mean, you have a decent run defense. I know you got some guys banged up there, but you worry less about that and worry about keeping contain on May and having a linebacker or somebody, safety, whatever it is, go spy on him when he takes off. And you can really limit this Patriots offense. It's not going to be that hard, I don't think.
It's that's an interesting stat, actually. I think most people, when they think of Drake May, they think of the arm talent of Drake May and just how he can launch it 90 yards down the field, it feels like. So that is an interesting stat that he's able to use his legs like that. But I do think that those are some of the things we saw from Justin a lot, and I hate constantly talking about Justin on here, but when it came to being able to the weapon that he became when he was able to use his legs, so that is a positive, obviously, of Drake May of adding something to the offense. When we're talking about that passing offense, though, Demario Douglas, shout out to him because we went to the same high school, so I root for that kid.
Cool.
Yeah, but Kayshon Boutte, Hunter Henry, what are the thoughts on this, on the weapons? And that's kind of probably what's frustrating for Bears fans, because when we're listing our weapons, people would say on paper you would feel like they're light years ahead of what the Patriots have right now, but the offense doesn't feel like that. But how do you guys feel about that, the receiving room right now?
I feel like the Bears are light years ahead of the Patriots, that's for sure. I mean, like, I know that Allen's sort of having a down year, and Moore, I don't know what's up with Moore.
Yeah,
but, you know, we'd all kill for Adunze. Instead, we got his teammate Polk, who can't catch anything and is getting benched. That was our second round pick this year. That was a big one, you know, for adding to a group that was really bad last year too. With Mac Jones and Zappi, you had Juju Smith-Schuster coming off knee surgery, who was brutal. Devontae Parker, who stinks. I don't even know where he's playing this year. And Pop Douglas, who, as you mentioned, is probably the best guy in the group. Boutte's having a little bit better of a year, I'd say. It seems like him and May have a little bit more chemistry. And, you know, that's good. Boutte was a guy who dropped in the draft because of, concerns about off the field stuff. And he had that whole gambling problem. But, like, you know, he's a guy with talent. You definitely can see the talent, but he's not a number one receiver. This team doesn't have a number one receiver. And it's like the Bears have two, maybe three, plus a good tight end. I like Kmet. I know he's having a down year too, but I guess the Patriots have a good tight end in Hunter Henry. But I think that in general, the Patriots are jealous of basically every team in the league's weapons. It's like that. Yeah. And that sucks because you have a rookie quarterback, and whether or not this works out for the Bears, they at least did the right thing for their rookie. They at least tried to load up and give him weapons, and guys like Allen, who have been reliable targets over the years, Adunze, who was a blue chip prospect in the draft, and they already had more, and that's how they got the pick in the first place. So it's like, you know, I think that's if you're Drake May, you're probably looking across over at that sideline going, man, like, why couldn't they do that for me? Why couldn't they give me one of these kind of guys? Instead, I'm stuck here with a bunch of fours. And in the case of like Polk, a guy who's got a weird attitude. I mean, like, he's dropping passes every week and then he mouths off about it. And he's like, I have the best hands in the league. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't have the best. You have the worst hands on this team. And this team has the worst receiver room in the league. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. So, weapons wise, yeah. And it's funny, you mentioned Justin Fields and how he was a weapon with his feet. They would design runs for Justin Fields. None of these runs for Drake May are design runs. These are pockets breaking down and I'm running for my life. And he's making it work. So, you know, maybe they'll design some runs for him this week. I don't know, but they haven't been so far.
Yeah, and that's what, it's not sustainable to obviously have to run for your life. We know that here. And yeah, I think we've been through that where it's like, why are you giving a rookie wide receiver nothing? I mean, a rookie quarterback nothing. We've had the list of rooms where I could go through and name the wide receivers and people would be like, I don't remember a Cameron Meredith and some of these guys that people are like, who the heck, Josh Bellamy. We went through those times, believe me. But it is. And I think that's what's so frustrating because people kind of were sold that, okay, Caleb doesn't even have to be really good because everybody around him can help him and can lift him through the beginning of the season. And we did have that 3-game stretch where it felt like things were clicking. And a good point to your point, Cole Kmet is a massive part of this offense, and he's had one target in the last 2 weeks. So they've got to figure that out. They have to get Cole the ball. Alex Van Pelt, though, I think that's a big hot topic here is Shane Waldron, the coaching staff, the play calling, all of these things just kind of not seeming like they're working. What are the thoughts so far on Van Pelt, obviously coming from Cleveland, and his play calling and how he is kind of planning around the little bit that he does have offensively?
Yeah, very little bit. And he's in a tough spot because he knows it. I mean, he knows what he's working with here. And he was in Cleveland last year when they had like 5 different quarterbacks. Remember, they had like Flacco and all those guys. And they made it work. And so Alex Van Pelt wasn't the Patriots' first choice. I don't even think he was like in the top 10 of their choices. But he was the guy that they ended up with. And it's his first time calling plays as a coordinator, even though he had the job in Cleveland. Stefanski called the offense. And he was kind of the QB guy. And they looked at it and said, okay, we'll give him a shot calling plays. But really what this is going to be about is him developing Drake May into a good pro. And I think so far you can say they've done that. I mean, I think so far he looks like he's developing in a pretty good way. He's come a long way since camp and all that. So I think that there's something for him to be proud of there. But as far as calling the offense, you're right. He doesn't have much to work with. But man, it's tough. It's tough watching the offense try and operate, because whatever it is that they're calling, and once in a while, you'll see them connect and you'll see them do something creative. But he's not a young, innovative offensive mind. Like he's just not one of those. And right now, Drake May has, and this is arguable, but I'd say the worst receiver room, one of the worst offensive lines, and the least experienced coaching staff in the NFL. I mean, that's, Gerard Mayo's first-year guy. Elliott Wolf's a first-year GM. Van Pelt's a first-year offensive coordinator calling plays for the first time. Even the defensive coordinators, Covington's a first-year guy. So that's a lot of stuff to hang on a rookie. He's playing for the first time in the NFL. It's like everybody's learning on the job at the same time, and they're a 2-win team. So, you kind of expect that. I was hoping that they would bring in somebody who, at least if they didn't have a ton of experience calling plays, they were considered like a league-wide young offensive mind, like Slowick in Houston or somebody, or like what's his name in Detroit, like one of these guys,
Ben
Frank
Johnson.
Smith in Miami, Ben Johnson or someone like that. And maybe that was out of their price range. Maybe those guys all said no thanks. I'm not in tune to the inner discussions that they have over there in Foxborough, but I do know that the guy they ended up with was not someone that was very sought after in the NFL. And now they have this very inexperienced coaching staff trying to bring along a very inexperienced quarterback. Yeah. And he's doing his best, but I think everybody's sort of having to deal with that all at the same time,
Yeah, that's a lot. Were you guys talking at all about a Kingsbury or a Kubiak there?
I would have loved Kingsbury or Kubiak. That would have been great. I don't know. I mean, I know that Nick Caley was someone they were talking to, and negotiations fell through. The rumor was that they were lowballing him. There was Zach somebody, I forget the other guy they had there, who ended up going somewhere else too. He was
Robinson, I think it was.
Zach Robinson. Thank you. Yeah. Zach Robinson. He was a quarterback. I think the Patriots drafted him years ago. And who knows? I mean, it's another first-year guy. Yeah. Who knew the system and sort of knew what was going on there. You also got to remember, Belichick just got fired. It seemed like there was a lot of upheaval going on. They ruined their last quarterback. The last offensive coordinator sequence was really bad. It went from McDaniels to Patricia to Bill
that
O'Brien.
was a weird thing.
Oh, that was terrible. They ruined Mac Jones with that.
What
so
is that?
Yeah, I think that it wasn't considered a popular destination. I think there were a lot of other teams that were more appealing to some of these guys. Some of these guys stayed in the jobs that they had. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is sort of who you end up with when you're so insular. And I think that's a problem for the Patriots. They wanted to move on from Belichick, but then they kept his front office. They promoted one of his assistants. For all the talk about time to get the team back and move on from Bill, you got a whole lot of guys here who were still his guys still working the team. And I just think that's very clear at this point,
Yeah, that was that whole defensive coordinator being the OC thing. Everybody was like, what is going on in New England right now? But I think we watched so many Super Bowls that were like, it's okay. Like they deserve this for a little while.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Let's switch over to the defense for a little bit before I let you go. So defensively, honestly, I feel like to start the season, a lot of people were talking about how it looked like this Patriots defense could be one of the better ones in the league. They started strong. Recently, they've allowed a lot of points to the Jags, a lot of points to the Texans, had a few, maybe some exploited things happening. But let's talk about the defensive front. What's that defensive front look like? The pass rush, all of that at this point in time.
The pass rush has not been good this year. They traded Judon, which I don't mind because he's been bad in Atlanta, and they got a third-round pick for him. So I think that was actually one of the better moves they made so far. They just traded Josh Uche, who hadn't been doing anything. He's on the Chiefs now, and they didn't get much for him. They got like a sixth-round pick. So, yeah, Dietrich Wise coming off the edge there. Keon White, who I like, second-year player. He's had some bad penalties this year and kind of plays out of control. And I think his teammates have sort of passive aggressively talked about him in some of these post game things. They're like, yeah, some of these guys on the line, they really just kind of freelance and don't set the edge. And it's like, sounds like you're all talking about Keon White. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I like him. He hasn't really been getting after the quarterback lately, though. Mason Rudolph, I don't even think he had to take a shower after the game. Same with what's his name in Jacksonville. Same with Trevor Lawrence. Probably I don't even think he had to wash a jersey. Like they're not getting after these guys very much, and that's putting a lot on the secondary. and guys like Christian Gonzalez, who I really like. They've also had injuries, like Peppers, not an injury, but he's out. Juwan Bentley, their play caller at linebackers, out. Barmore, who's probably their best defensive player, him and Gonzalez, the two Christians, which is why I root for him. He's out with the blood clot. So like there's been some injuries, but all teams have injuries, so I don't lay it on that. I think that Belichick had a real knack for game planning, even in these last couple of years when the team sucked. He could game plan and scheme up a defense for whoever was on the other side. And Mayo doesn't have that. Covington doesn't quite have that yet. And that's something that's going to take some time. The defensive front is not their strength. They get run over a lot. There's a lot of games that have ended with long drives where the other team's just running the ball down their throat and they give up a touchdown at the end. And that's been a problem. I think the secondary has been the strength, but even there, outside of Gonzalez and occasionally someone like Kyle Duggar, who's missed a bunch of times, he's missed 2 games, and he's missed 2 practices so far this week, so you might not see him. It's been a major step back, I'd say, this year for the defense. They're about league average, I'd say, but they used to be top 10. Yeah. Some metrics had them in like the top 5 last year, which I didn't really buy. I thought they loaded up on bad teams and got put in their place by the good teams. But this year, every team's kind of putting them in their place. So it's been an adjustment. I think a lot of people expected, the defense would hold. You can run the ball, bring the quarterback along, and none of that stuff's really working other than the quarterback.
Yeah, I think that when you're talking about the defensive front, I told this to the guy I was talking to last week for the Cardinals Bears preview, and I was like, if you want to get your pass rush right, play the Bears, because it's just, and it happened. I mean, coming into the game, the Cardinals had only getting the quarterback like 26% of the time. They got to Caleb 46% of the time last week. It was already a not great line, and then now they're super beat up. There's a backup right guard, a backup center. Our left tackle, we're on our 3rd string left tackle. Darnell Wright went out, so now we're on our backup right tackle.
It sounds like the Patriots. It sounds like the same thing that happened. Everybody's banged up for them too. They're on 3rd stringers, 4th stringers. It's crazy.
Do you feel like there's just like a ton of extra injuries this year, like league wide?
Yes, and I think that offensive line play has declined. I think that you see that a lot. I don't know if it's been the emphasis on edge rushers or what, but I think that you're seeing a lot of teams now struggling to put a line together, and the teams with good lines are the good teams in the league. I mean, it's I hate to say it like that because it's so boring talking about offensive line. I know that doing a show every day, like, it's not fun, but it's true. It's you can trace it all the way down. And if you want a good tackle, you got to draft one. I mean, you got to draft one in the 1st round. Most starting left tackles in the league right now, assuming they're not hurt, are 1st round picks, lottery picks a lot of the time. So like that's what you have to do in order to do it. The Patriots need that. They need a wide receiver. They need all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be a weird offseason, I think. But listen, if they can get to Williams, that'll be a confidence boost for them. But I'll believe it when I see it. I don't know. It's just been one of those things this year. Are you guys confident? Like, Bears fans confident this week? You should be.
I don't think so. Like, I truly at this point think that it was like the Hail Mary sucked the soul out of everybody, I think. And it was one of those moments where it was just like they kind of shot themselves in the foot. You had 2 seconds left in this game and you win, and you just continue on this winning streak and you're feeling good. And then instead you lose in the final couple seconds. And that was a big game because it was like Caleb's return to his hometown, the DMV area. It was Jaden versus Caleb. It was all of these things. And so, and then obviously Cliff Kingsbury, who was with him at USC. So there was all these other little factors going on in that game. And then it ended that way. And so then you go into the Arizona game, and it felt like a game that could be close, but you could pull out and you get absolutely embarrassed. And after that, now people are concerned. I think it's more so the coaching staff. I think a lot of Bears fans are confident on paper, and they think this roster is way better than what they're playing like, but they have no confidence in Eberflus or Shane Waldron at this point, and it's really affected how people feel about the team as a whole.
You think you get fired this year?
I don't know. Like, from what it sounds like, they're saying no. He has 1 more year on his deal, and it sounds like they want to ride it out, but I just don't know how you make it through if it gets to the end of the year and he has another game or two, because we've lost games solely on Eberflus, and the Bears have not won a game, like a true road game on a Sunday once with him. They're 0-18. And so that is something that is just lingering. Like, you can't win on the road against not even good teams. Every win you have is at home against mid teams, a couple good wins sprinkled in. And so to
Well,
me,
you're
it's
at home against a bad team this week, so
that's
this is
that's
this is
literally
a
probably
get
the
right
only thing
game
holding
tonight,
us
yeah.
on is we're like, okay, we're at home the next 2 weeks, so just win these next 2 home games. But I don't know, it's depressing because it felt like things were going really well, and then it just felt like everything fell off a cliff really quick, and it feels like history repeating itself, and that's the most frustrating things for Bears fans. But I told you 20 minutes and we've gone a little over, so let me just ask you a couple more before we go.
Okay.
On the Patriots side of things, because obviously you just asked me if we were confident. What is the mindset of Patriots coming in? Because they have to see all of this noise coming in, DJ walking off the field, and is Eberflus going to get fired, and all of these things kind of going on. So what's the mindset from you guys heading to Chicago?
I think in general, it's not. I don't consider it a winnable game. I don't know if they do. I mean, I think that this week, Gerard Mayo, he was talking about a sense of urgency and trying to create that for this team. And I don't think it's really been there so far on either side of the ball or special teams or anything. I just think this is a very inexperienced sort of slapped together team that's trying its best and is really all about the development of this rookie quarterback. And I think that that's sort of it. Like each one of these games doesn't really even feel like, because for 20 years, I mean, the regular season was kind of an afterthought around here. It's just like, all right, wake me up when the playoffs start. And now it's sort of the opposite of that almost. Like the regular season matters, but not about wins and losses, but just about sort of this one player. And I think that I look at the Bears, and I think Patriots fans probably look at the Bears as a flawed team, but one of those middle of the road teams. And not one of the 2-win teams. And there's a lot of 2-win teams in the league right now.
I know.
Like 9 of them, I think, or 9 or 10. And it's like, that's a third of the league is 2 wins. There's a problem in the NFL this year. I don't know exactly what to make of it, but I do think the Bears talent generally wins out. And I think the Bears are a more talented team, probably on both sides of the ball at this point. And even though you don't like Eberflus, like, at least he knows what he's doing. We're not sure really with Gerard Mayo if he even has a plan to execute. So it's not a game I'd say Patriots fans are feeling confident about. But I'm saying if you're a Bears fan and you're panicking right now, don't, because if you lose to the Patriots, then you can panic. That's when you can panic. This is losing a couple of games. I think Arizona's sneaky good, by the way. Like
I do too. Yeah.
Like that's not an embarrassing team to lose to. And Jaden Daniels he's in the MVP conversation. Like he's having a pretty magical season. So that was an unfortunate game, but that was a Hail Mary. Like I understand it's a kick in the stomach, but I wouldn't overreact too much. If they lose to the Patriots, though, yeah, then it's panic button time. Then I'd say overreact as much as you want. Like say there's no level of overreaction I think that you can hit that would be inappropriate for losing to the Patriots.
That's what I think. I've had to talk some people off the edge saying the similar things where I'm like, okay, let's just breathe for a second. You're 4-4 with a rookie quarterback, with a rookie wide receiver, a new offensive play caller. Keenan Allen wasn't here last week. The offensive line's completely hurt. The defense, who's really good, has also been missing multiple pieces. Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, obviously kind of benched last week. So I was like, there's a lot of things that it could be worse. And to your point, I also thought Arizona, I think they're a pretty decent team. I think Kyler's having this like resurgence year where he's looking kind of more former Kyler, where he can move a little bit more, which helps him a lot. And then to your point with Jaden, I mean, Jaden didn't score a touchdown until time ran out, and you were able to keep someone who has been able to put up a ton of points to not score until a Hail Mary. But I think people just want to see the Bears have scored 10 points in the first quarter in 8 games. And so those are kind of the things that are getting frustrated. It just takes too long for them to score. But yeah, I think it will be full on meltdown, fire everybody if they lose to the Patriots at home this weekend. So we will see you. But again, Christian, thank you for hopping on with me. I really appreciate it. I will say the only time I've ever been up to Boston, New England was actually for the AFC Championship, the Jags Patriots game. And it was one of the most fun I've ever had at an away game. Like everybody
2017, the Blake Bortles game?
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, that was a great game. Danny Amendola had that touchdown and the buzzer, right? Yeah,
it was like the Jags were up with like 2 minutes left, and then Miles Jack wasn't down, and then Brady converts to like 3rd and 15 or something. It was crazy. But I honestly, I went there being everyone talking about how kind of intense Boston fans are. So I was terrified walking back, and everybody was so cool. And they're giving us chicken wings and beers on the way back to the car as we're all just kind of bummed out. So I've always had a good time up there, but I appreciate you hopping on with me.
Sure, and I'm glad they were good to you. Some if they had lost, maybe they wouldn't have been. But
Yeah,
that's nice to hear. I was expecting to hear some kind of horror story about the fans, but that's good. Thanks for having me. This is really fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good one.
All right, bye bye.
All right, bye.